welcome back for another 8 Caillou challenge video. This one's called CSV Representation of Array. And CSV is an acronym standing for comma separated variable. Maybe you've seen spreadsheets set up this way, configuration files where each value is separated by a comma. It's okay if you haven't seen that, but just know that it's a common format for storing data in files. And so we are going to sort of take some raw integer data here, and we're going to format that into a quote CSV style. So notice the input here, these are integers, not string values. And also note that you have an array of arrays. So you've got these outer brackets here denoting the outer array. And then each entry, normally we're used to arrays containing, integers or strings, but it's actually a collection as an element, a collection of collections, if you will. So that's a little bit different, but that's okay. You could also note, if you want a little extra reading, this is a jagged array, as opposed to in C# we also have something called a multi-dimensional array, which I think would have been more appropriate here, but they used a jagged array, which essentially means that these subarrays can have differing lengths. When you have a multi-dimensional array, all of them will be the same size. That's why I said I thought it would be better here because, well, at least in this example, right? Maybe they're going to feed us examples where they're not all the same size, and maybe that's why they used a jagged array. So I take my comment back if that's the case. But good to know there's two different types there and what the difference is between them. And so we'll get to this format here where you've got, it's unfortunate they use single quotes here. They should be double quotes. We know in C# use double quotation marks for strings. Single quotes denote characters. So this doesn't really make sense what they have here. And they're trying to show you that the plus shouldn't be part of the output. They're trying to say add this to it, but do it on a separate line. You see this \n here. This is an escape character that says to make a new line. It's like pressing enter on your keyboard. And that is part of the actual output, so we will include that. It just prevents it from going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12, you know what I mean, all on the same line where you'd have one giant mega line. So the new line's like an enter. They give us that the array's length is greater than 2, and I didn't read the wiki article here, but feel free to do that. You will encounter CSV files if you get involved in professional programming. So I think that's enough here. I think it's straightforward. Obviously at this level it could be a challenge to do, but I think it's clear what they want you to do. Take these numbers and make a string out of it. Remember, we think of methods as contracts. This is what we get as part of the contract, and this is what we have to give back as part of the method contract. So we're going to build that string. I'm going to show you a couple ways of doing this. We'll do one sort of building on our own, and then we'll leverage some LINQ methods if you want to stick around and see that too. At this 8 level, I don't like to just bust out one-line LINQ statements, but we can do that at the end if you're interested. So let's get into a solution. You've had time enough to pause me now and have an attempt at this by yourself. So what I'm going to do is, since I'm going to be sort of constructing this output string line by line, I'm going to use something called string builder. And you could use a regular string variable here. But I'm going to, this could be a good introduction if you haven't seen any of my previous videos with string builder. So you create a string builder object first. And you don't need to pass anything. If you had initial text, you could pass it in the constructor and you would start at that point. This is just like string for our purposes, but instead of using the concatenation operator, which is the plus sign or plus equals, now we'll call an append method to do the same thing. And then you have to note when you're done with your string builder, when we return, I'll have to say result to string. In fact, I'll put that out right now, to string. If you're using a regular string variable, you don't have to do that. And I think we need to bring in system text, but we'll find out when we run a test. So good, we've got this thing, and I probably should tell you too that I opted for this because I'm sort of building this line by line. In other words, I'm modifying the text numerous times. And so it's more efficient to use a string builder when you're going to be modifying text a lot. We know that regular strings, they're not mutable. They feel like they are when you use them, you know, because you can just hit plus and plus equals to modify them, but they're actually creating a new string under the hood, and that's not so efficient. So that's why I opted for that here. For the purpose of this test, I think it'll be fine to, or this challenge, it'll be fine to use a regular string if you're more comfortable with that. But anyways, as you can imagine now, we're going to loop through this array, and we're going to grab each subarray for each element and sort of process that. So we could do something like a regular for loop here. For int I equals 0, I is less than array dot length. We know arrays have that length property, so you can see how big they are, how many elements they contain. And I'm going to use these curly braces to define the scope of my for loop, the body that will keep getting repeated as my index is incremented in this case. So now I'm going to sort of start appending line by line to our result, right? So I told you that result will use append, and this is just like, you know, if you had some string plus equals, you know what I mean? It's the same thing. We're making a method call because it's what the string builder offers. And now for the next part, you can imagine that when I say something like this, array index I, when we start I is 0, so it's going to give us this line right here. Array index I is going to be this whole subarray. That's what that expression means. So consider what I just typed out here is an array itself. And so what I want to do is, I just want to put commas between each value, and I want to convert it to a string. So if you've seen some of my other videos, you probably know by now that we have this really helpful string join method where I can achieve just that. And what's really nice about join, as opposed to doing this yourself, is that join is smart enough not to put that extra comma after the end, so we don't get to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how there's no comma, it just goes right to the new line. And join will take care of that. It's designed to not go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so you don't have to worry about that. That's why I love string join. It's great for converting enumerable collections. When you use LINQ methods too, you can get it back into a string form really nice this way. You can just leave it empty if you want everything crammed together, but we're doing a CSV file here, so we have a lone comma. Notice there's no space between the commas. Sometimes maybe if you're working with text, you want to put a comma space, and you could do that. But anyway, this does what it looks like it does. It takes that subarray and just puts commas between each element, but not after the last element. So that's good. We got that part, but don't forget the new line bit too. And so with this, what I'm going to do is, since I don't want a new line at the end, if you try to do it like this, I can show you. If you try to go plus / new line, you're not going to like how that comes back. I'll hit test. I think we're going to get yelled at. We need system text. See how it doesn't recognize string builder? So it's clearly not in the system namespace because we already have that. It's going to be system text, and you can look that up in the doc pages, but we should have that error message go away. Okay, good. So look at this. You can see we're not far off, but look at, they expected this, no new line at the end, but was everything perfect, but an extra new line at the end. So if you wanted to get rid of this, we'll pull this out, and we could do something like this. If I is less than array length -1, then we'll say result append, and 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 then we'll say result append, that new line character. And note that if it's less than length -1, it means you're not on the last element, so it's okay to go ahead and put a new line after that array. But when you're on the very last array, which is 30 through 34, it won't do it there because I would be equal to array length -1, which is not less than, so it skips over this line here. And that should turn out the way we want it. Good. We'll hit the attempt. Make sure we're still golden. And so yeah, so you could submit this off. This isn't bad. I'm going to give you that LINQ condensed form like I promised. But even if the string builder stuff is weird, or string join, if you really wanted to implement this yourself without any kind of library calls, remember, you could always just make an inner loop, right? To take care of handling each element. You'd of course have to rename your variable. You can't reuse I in the same scope. That would be a clash. You can't redeclare a new variable with the exact same name in the same scope. That's, you know what I mean? That'd be too confusing. And so you could do something like this, where you're going through, you're using J to index into each element of all of these subarrays. So you're getting the values one at a time, you know, that 30, then 31. So you would add to your string each value and then a comma after it, but again, not a comma after the last value. We saw that in the instructions, right? You don't put the comma after. It's not 4 comma, it's just 4, and that's the end. So you could do something like this part I have highlighted again, if you wanted to do it that way. So if you thought I was going too much with the library methods, go ahead and do something like this too. And like I said, you can go string result if you're more comfortable with that, and then build your string with the concatenation operator instead of this string builder append. Now, if you want the extra credit, or you know how I would probably solve this and how I will submit it, let's just do it. Let's see the power of LINQ, how it can help us with something like this. So if you want to do a multi-line comment, you can do that. And what I'm going to do is I can do this all on one line with LINQ. And I'm going to sort of build from the inside out so you can see how I go about this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take our input, which is the array of arrays, and I'm going to use this LINQ method select. Hopefully you've seen that in my videos before, but if not, go to your C# enumerable select. And I've been saying in other videos too, you know, while you're learning LINQ, just keep a tab open on this C# enumerable, and you can see all of the methods here. See, select is highlighted because we're on that. But just so you're always seeing these method names, these are all under enumerable methods I expanded. And so you see all this power you have at your hands here. But select I use a lot, and it's really handy. I think this is a great description. Projects each element of a sequence into a new form. That's what we're doing, right? We're taking an array of integers, and now we decided, no, we don't want integers. We want a string with the numerical representation in string form and a comma after it, except for the last value. So this plays right into what we're trying to do. So I can hit array select, and then we're going to use this lambda. And since each array is an array of arrays, so each subarray is also an array, I'm going to use this ARR for my lambda parameter name. And these lambdas are just a shorthand way of writing a method, where this part is your parameter list on the left of the arrow, and everything after the arrow is the method body. So that just write it out like you would type if you were making a separate method for this. And so in my case, how do I want to transform the array? What I'm going to do is use that logic like we used before. I'm going to use string join to sort of say, hey, take each of these subarrays and make a string out of it. And the way you do that is you take your subarray values and you join them all together in one string. That's what I'm saying here. In one string, join all of the array elements and join them with a comma between each of them. So once you work with this a lot, it reads fairly nice, in my opinion. And so that takes care of most of this, right? This gets us to the point of having strings with commas injected between the values, but we still have this new line part, right? So all I'm going to do then is I'm going to wrap everything I just wrote up in another string join that will add the new line characters between each of the subarrays. So we can do the same thing all over again. String join, new line character, with the whole result, right? This produced a string. This whole statement I have highlighted. Well, actually, this part converted it to string. So now select returns an IEnumerable of strings now. And refer back to the documentation if you don't believe me. I'm not asking you to just believe me on any of this. You can go down every page you look at. There's going to be a return section, and so we get IEnumerable of type result. I know this can be intimidating at first. IEnumerable is just a generic, just think of it in a generic sense as a collection. No, just a nice general word for a collection. But they're strings at this point. So we have this IEnumerable of strings. You can think of it as a collection of strings with each line in its mostly proper format without the new lines. And then we're just saying, hey, between each of these now, add a new line between them. New line there, new line there, new line there. But again, string join's smart enough, it doesn't stick it at the end because, you know, that's we want this behavior. We don't want the extra data. So we can sort of chain that all together and return this on one line. Let me see if I missed anything. I'm going to see if I match my parentheses. Looks like I missed the closing parentheses. See how it highlights the front one and the one that you're currently on? So something like this should work. Oh, but I missed the library. So note, this is instructive, does not contain a definition for select. And of course it doesn't. We didn't make a select. We got it from, and again, go to the doc pages if you don't know this. I don't know it. I look them up, and it says system LINQ. When you don't know, it'll tell you the namespace that it's in. So we've got to add that. We've got to add using system LINQ, and we shouldn't need system text anymore because we're not using string builder for this solution. But let's try this. Make sure I typed it okay. Green and green. Good. So I'm going to submit mine this way. I did it the other way because I don't like to just come out with this in an absolute beginner level course. You know what I mean? I don't think that's appropriate to just tell, you know, new people, yeah, this is how you solve it, you know. You should be able to write out loops and not use any of that stuff. It's just a nice shorthand once you're comfortable with everything. But definitely at 8 Caillou level, I'd recommend implementing your own, and then, you know, if you can additionally get to doing this stuff, that's awesome. It's really cool if you can do that when you're at the 8 Caillou level. So they're going to make me run it again because I modified the code. And we're good. I'll go ahead and submit mine off like this. Like I always say, look at other people's solutions. You're not confined to learn just from me. You can learn from everybody. And they essentially did the same thing, it looks like, as we did. And then other people, see, remember I told you can do a nested for loop. This is sort of the outer array, and these are processing the inner arrays. They use string like I told you if you're more comfortable with that. And then you use this concatenation operator. And so you're going into array I to get the right subarray, and then the J index is giving you the element within that subarray. And so yeah, they're building, it's the same kind of thing, you know, it's just a different way of achieving the same result. But you should be able to do this for sure. When you're comfortable with that, move on. But yeah, not much else to say. Go ahead and look through, see what else you can learn from people. Otherwise, hit me up with your questions, comments, concerns. Otherwise, I'll see you in another video. Thanks for watching.